Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'm Izabella, your host, and after a quiet week at the box office, we thought we'd treat you to an audio offering of a new segment from Areyounotqatartained, filmmaker interviews. Now we go over to Glen. Hi, Glen!
Hi, Izabella. That's absolutely right, folks. Welcome to Areyounotqatartained, the interviews, Volume 1. That's right. Over the coming weeks and months, we will have the opportunity to share with you interviews with filmmakers, including directors, writers, stars of upcoming movies on streaming and in cinemas. We're delighted to share these opportunities with you. And what a first show we have, folks. Wow. First up, Dr. Erin Macdonald, the official science advisor for the whole Star Trek franchise. Movies, TV, cartoons, and also on Prime Video right now, we have the great comedy Space Cadet.
Once upon a time, I had bigger dreams.
I see a girl.
3,
Look!
2, 1.
That's gonna be you one day, Rex.
I know it, Mom.
But sometimes, life doesn't always work out the way you planned.
Yo.
Can I get you another drink? 10 years ago, I got lost. Last call, everybody, last call! But it's not too late. I'm gonna be an astronaut.
Oh my God. Wait, come again?
Also, two movie legends on our first show. First up, Elisabeth Shue. You will know from the Back to the Future franchise, Hollow Man, Leaving Las Vegas, Babysitter's Club, and most recently, of course, The Boy. And I ask her all about those projects. Next up, Mr. David Arquette, the Scream franchise legend. Both of these stars are talking about their new movie, The Good Half.
You're wanting this flight to be all quiet. Me, someone who's afraid of flights, really wants it to all just turn into a Michael Bay film.
So you're afraid of flying?
Yes.
You think every action movie from the 90s is a great film?
And yet, I know nothing about you.
Ask away.
Oh, you are gonna regret saying that.
So I get to speak to Elisabeth first, then straight into Mr. Arquette, and that will do us for Volume 1. I really hope you enjoy it, folks. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, comment, all those wonderful things on each of our social media platforms, and tell us what you thought of Volume 1 of the interviews. We'd love to hear from you. And Izabella and I will be back soon for more Areyounotqatartained. But here we go for the interviews. Enjoy.
I'm good. It's nice to meet you.
You too. Okay, so we have producer, writer, director, space consultant. Which one of those is on your passport?
Well, I'll say the science consultant for Star Trek will probably get me the most friends. So that's the one I'll say first.
So you studied astrophysics, is that right?
Yeah.
Glasgow? So I'm just interested in what put you on that path to take that specific degree. So for example, at university, I did film and television studies, specifically done for two reasons. One was Star Wars, which I saw when I was 11 years old.
Love it.
And then when I first saw The Usual Suspects, and I thought, wow, you could write a story like this. So that put me on a path to moviedom, if you like. So what was the specific moment or moments that put you on the road to, I will learn how all this universe stuff works?
Yeah, for me, it was also film and television. Ironically, yeah. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so I was watching The X-Files, and Dana Scully was the coolest woman I had ever seen in my entire life, and I just wanted to be her. And also the film Contact with Jodie Foster as Dr. Ellie Arroway. She was such a huge, just a cool, interesting, complicated person. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a woman be an astronomer. To be honest, it was probably the first time I saw a working astronomer, too, to actually see what... And we don't encounter aliens as much, but yeah. So,
it wasn't a white old guy in a white coat, yeah.
Right, yeah, and just seeing kind of what that looks like. And so that's kind of what set me down that path. I never lost my passion for space. I always thought it was fascinating. And then as I was going through high school and taking science classes, I did enjoy physics, just finding ways to describe the world around us. And then learning that you could go get a degree in the physics of space just seemed cool to me. So, and then I found out Dana Scully, the fictional character, did her undergraduate degree in physics with astronomy. So I was like, well, if I'm going to be Dana Scully, obviously, that's the path.
Makes sense. Yeah. Do you think there needs to be more female role models? Like, Scully was the heart of this show, and she was the audience. Do you think we need more female protagonists like that today?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I do think we still have a long ways to go, but it's all about this idea of representation matters, and the amount of people and different backgrounds and appearances and class systems and all of these diversity. You know, the Gina Davis Institute has a good phrase that's like, if you can see it, you can be it. And that was certainly the case for me. I am a product of the Scully effect. You know, I saw Dana Scully and I wanted to become a scientist. And so, yes, we need as many as possible out there. But what's weird is we're in a different time of television, because I'm sure you remember everyone watched the X-Files. Everyone watched the X-Files. And we don't really have like as much of those touchstones. There are these shows that kind of come and go that a lot of people watch, but you're still not talking to cross generations, different friend groups. Not everyone will be watching those. And so it's just kind of about getting as much out there as possible, because we don't have those same cultural touch points that we did back then. I mean, I loved doing research, and so I wanted to go through my PhD, and living in Glasgow was fantastic, and I absolutely loved it. But for me, I was increasingly realizing that like becoming a professor wasn't the right fit for me. And to scratch the teaching itch, because I really love it, I would go to these pop culture conventions, all the local Comic-Cons around the country, and I would teach the science of Star Trek, or I would teach the physics of Star Wars. I would talk about how lightsabers would work and, you know, what works and what doesn't. I think what's great about pop culture is people have seen this stuff, so you can at least use it as a reference point when you're talking about like what could work or what doesn't work. So that's kind of where I scratched that itch. And then I moved to Los Angeles. I wanted to be closer to the industry. I'd met other people who had been science advisors on shows. I'd been meeting a lot of writers and actors. And so when I moved to LA, I started just, you know, all these opportunities started coming my way. And then I got involved with Star Trek specifically through my convention talks. They wanted me to come to their official events and give physics of Star Trek talks. And then they were greenlighting all of these shows, and it made sense to have a single person in charge of all the science, all the technology, all of the in-universe stuff as well. And so that's been 5 years now. It's my main focus.
Well, so you're like in charge of just that consistency as well, of course, isn't it? Oh, but in episode 24 of season 2, that feels worked. And do you ever have fun like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know what? I love that though. Like I am, because I am of that same thing. And I think what's so good is especially the show Lower Decks does such a good job of being for Star Trek fans in the same way Galaxy Quest was too. Like it didn't make fun of Star Trek fans. It's a love letter to those of us who it's like, it appears like we take it really seriously, but it's just really fun to be so immersed in a world like that. And so, yes, I mean, the people who keep me up at night are the ones who screen cap every single frame and check my math that I put on the screen. And every little piece of consistency. But all I try to do for everything, there are things that slip up. There are mistakes that are made. We're not perfect people. I always try to have an in-universe explanation of like, well, the computer system glitched. That's why that number's wrong. When in reality, that slipped past us in the millions of things that we're trying to keep an eye on. And so I think fans appreciate that. And it's fun for me too.
It must be so much fun. Do you remember something you definitely, a big red line for you just said, no, I can't allow this to go?
You know, I always try to have like a positive yes and attitude to working with the writers. I think that's what's helped me be successful working in this job. But there have been a couple of times. One was really interesting because I did my PhD in gravitational waves before they were detected, and it was all still theoretical. But that's my baby. Like that's what I spent a good chunk of my life studying. And so we were going to have gravitational waves in an episode of Star Trek Discovery. And they were doing the traditional thing of they're sitting in a ready room. They're trying to figure out how this guy is going to get out. And they're visualizing the gravitational waves, and they look like ocean waves. They look like surf waves, which isn't how gravitational waves look. They look like compression sort of sound waves. And so I kind of gave that note, and I said, you don't really surf on the gravitational waves. This is not quite how it works. And so to their credit, the VFX team, like they mocked up what it would look like gravitational waves to try to explain what's going on. And it lost people. They threw, it threw people out, and because it wasn't intuitive for the way they were describing the scene, which I had also helped, check the box on. And so we went back to the surfing waves just because it was like, you want people to stay in the story, and that's fine. Like, I can sleep at night. But it's just an interesting example of that trade with story and science that we have to do all the time.
Okay. Yeah, of course that makes a lot of sense, because you kind of lose the audience and you have to make it applicable for them. Of course, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep with Star Trek. Let's talk about the animated project you work on. We're going to season 2. Brian Voice, tell us all about that.
Yeah. So Star Trek Prodigy just came out on July 1st on Netflix for season 2. And that has been such an honor. So I play Dr. Erin Macdonald. They gave me lieutenant commander rank, which I'm fine with the science uniform. I actually made my first appearance at the season finale of season 1, and that came about because we have all these characters in Prodigy who are young kids who are trying to understand Starfleet, and it's very much an introduction to Star Trek. And there's one young girl whose name is Rock Talk that figures out that she wants to be a scientist. And so I helped the writers a lot kind of create that character, and I became very close to her and just as a character, and what would motivate her is she's trying and screwing up and finding her path in science. And so when the kids get to Starfleet Academy, the showrunners, the Hageman brothers, were so kind, and they said, well, she has to meet Dr. Erin, like that has to be. And so they had this little brief scene in there where I get to meet Rock Talk and set her on the path of xenobiology. But then as season 2 was coming around, we had a scene, because it's a huge time travel story, and it very much, I helped them a lot in trying to figure out how the timelines would work and how it would all close sort of logically. And we had to have like an explainer, Mr. DNA video type thing come up. And so they said, hey, here's, I'm trying to do more TV writing. And they were like, let's put this in here. And then they had me do the voice for it. And it was fantastic. So I get to teach temporal mechanics 101 in Star Trek.
That's so cool. And will you get an action figure?
I hope so.
It's in your contract.
Exactly. It's weird. There's only been the only 2 people now who have ever played themselves in the Star Trek universe are Stephen Hawking and myself. Just no pressure.
That is a great club.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an honor to say the least.
You didn't have to audition for yourself. You didn't have to put on a different voice. And how did you approach voicing your own voice? What was that like?
Well, ironically, I had been doing voice acting for years, well before I even started working in television. It was a hobby that I started when I was still a researcher, because I finished my PhD and I realized I had not spoken to a non-scientist in like 5 years. And so I took some acting courses, and I've been doing voice acting on the side. I've narrated some audiobooks, just did some fan projects, just small hobby type stuff. But I at least had that acting training and the background that I've been able to voice my own character. And so that's been great. And they've put me now in Star Trek Online. I got to voice myself in the video game. And yeah, so what turned out as just an esoteric hobby that I had has actually folded itself into my career as well.
That's great. And we stepped outside Star Trek briefly with the new movie on Prime Video, Space Cadet, starring very charming Emma Roberts. Yeah. And I've seen the movie, and it's just fun and it's easy going. You can't take it too serious, because obviously you start to question NASA's whole recruitment policy. But how did you get involved with that project?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about that because I think it's a perfect example of the type of project where the writer director wants to have a scientist check it, like just as like a sanity check of like, please just make sure I didn't completely make an idiot of myself. And I know that she had a really hard time kind of fighting the right science advisor for that, who got it, right? That like you read the script and you're like, okay, like I'm not gonna tell you not to do your third act, like this has to still be in here. And I think she was really struggling with that. But I pride myself as a science advisor on just like, all right, let's do it. Let's be weird. Let's do the fun thing. And you have to very quickly understand the tone. I personally loved it, just as you described. It's fun. It's lighthearted. It's a fun movie. And so I was all here for it. And so I did a sanity check, just make sure that they're talking about things the right way. I think it was a lot of the scenes when they're in the training process, of how the trainers are talking to them and explaining stuff. That was kind of most of the things that I checked.
So you can step outside.
Most of the time I can let stuff wash over me. I would say probably 90% of the time, because like you said, I just enjoy watching these things. The only things that will pull me out is like egregious mistakes. And the one trigger point that I have is just, and it's of no one's fault, because I think society, this has happened through our pop culture, but a misunderstanding of like planets versus star systems versus galaxies. We see so many times where it's like, oh, these aliens came from the Andromeda galaxy. Like, gee, there's like a billion stars between here and there that they could have easily come from in a much shorter distance. And so we call it the cosmological address, but you can understand why, right? That like Star Wars, it's in a galaxy far, far away. But it's really just star systems that we see. And then you have things like Firefly, which refers to the verse. Battlestar Galactica takes place in our own galaxy, but in another, they're trying to find Earth and they're visiting different star systems. And so it's all kind of gotten muddled in our culture, the difference between a star system, which is just a star or two stars with planets going around them, versus galaxies, which are islands of billions of stars that are out there. Those are the only things that if they screw up, I'm like, oh no. Otherwise, I sit back and enjoy what I'm watching.
Okay, so we're in a star system.
We are, yes. So we orbit one sun, our sun, and it's just one. And then there are 8 planets. There's dwarf planets. There's asteroid belt, and that is our star system. And if you zoom out further, we are one star system in the billions of stars that are in the Milky Way galaxy. And then the Milky Way galaxy is in sort of a grouping of other galaxies, which include the Andromeda one and then some smaller ones. And so I call it the cosmological address because it's like explaining where you live is, you zoom out, right? You have your street, your town, your state or your county, and then your country. It's, you're zooming out. We have our planet, our star system, our galaxy, and then the universe. So I hope that helps.
Simple. There we go. Why did I get it so wrong? Okay. Just one last question before I go, Erin. Your thoughts on The Acolyte?
Oh, I love The Acolyte. Oh, I've really been enjoying it. Again, I watch all Star Wars content. Just inject it into my eyeballs. I will watch all of it. I have been loving the lore. I love this High Republic era, this Skywalker saga era that we're in. I have some theories, but I don't get screeners, so I don't know what's coming. And I think the cast has been fantastic. That's Carrie-Anne Moss is just a treasure, and I've thoroughly been enjoying it. I loved this last week's episode. Blew my mind.
Close your eyes. Your eyes can deceive you. We must not trust them. Tell me what comes into your mind.
silence. I see fire.
From here, we go to the hospital to get her things. Then we go to meet the priest.
A priest.
Yes,
A priest?
it's Rick's call.
My stepdad. Right on cue.
Father Dan has been a true champion for us, a spiritual hero.
I'm so relieved to hear that you knew our mother.
He never met her. He's more my spiritual hero.
Hi,
And there she is. Miss Shue, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for covering the movie.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So, you play Lily in The Good Half. Now, I have to say, when you're not on screen, the film misses you. And it really reminded me of watching Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon, because it has that effect of when June is not on screen, the character misses her and the audience miss her. That had that same effect with you playing Lily in the film. So that obviously there's a reason behind that, because spoilers, you are past in the movie. You are seen through a series of flashbacks, of course. So I just wanted to check, did you audition for the film or were you approached? Because whoever approached you deserves an extra dollar in their paycheck.
Well, I was approached. Robert, I think, got in touch. I think he knew one of my agents at the time, whatever. And so I read the script. And I got on the phone with him, and I was really fortunate that he thought of me, because I just loved the script immediately and thought, wow, these aren't the kind of movies that you get to see very often these days. And my son is writing. He's just graduated from college, and he's writing, wants to be a writer, and he's tutoring. And so, of course, that really touched me. And yeah, it just reminded me of the movies from the old days when people cared about human relationships and a family going through a funeral. And so I was really lucky that I got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you're on screen, the color palette changes and it just becomes a complete different movie. And you think, when you're not on screen, you sort of go, when's Elizabeth back? Where is it? It worked out really, really well. And I'm sure you haven't checked YouTube comments or anything like that in the trailer, but I'll sum them up for you. I'm here for Elizabeth.
Really?
That's
so
right. 100%. Kudos to you. Obviously, it's a heartbreaking film, of course, but there's the idea of hope, and there's that idea of not giving up once someone so close to you has passed, and that idea of regret, but not saying goodbye, things like, did that hit you hard as a mom as well yourself?
Definitely. I felt like that Lily's story and how she dealt with her illness was something that I think everyone could learn from, including myself, if God forbid that ever happens to me, is that it's important, I think, for people to face those moments and want to embrace them. And she should have called Ren and said, hey, I don't want you to see me this way. I want you to remember me the way I was. However, this is part of life. Get your ass over here and let's deal. So it's not all on him that he doesn't participate in the bad half of her life, so to speak. I think it's also on her. And I thought that was very interesting. She was very childlike in a lot of ways, her whole, kleptomania, and just not really wanting to grow up, her choice of a second husband. So anyway, I love that theme of it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. Casual kleptomania just really made me giggle. I'm reminding me of my mum as well. I said, Mum, what are you doing? She said, "It's me a spoon." I really giggle as well. Yeah.
That's so funny. Now I think about it. Whenever I go to restaurants, I think about what would I steal if I wanted to? But yeah, no, I actually enjoyed stealing gum when I was little, and I got caught. And so
gum, not used.
Not used, no, brand new gum, lip gloss, anything I get my hands on. Yeah, I know. So it was good to learn my lesson.
And the scenes you were in, they seemed just really, I don't want to say lighthearted, but they seemed almost improvisational. Were you given that opportunity by the director? Because it just seemed like very, very easygoing and very conversational. Were that in the script, or did you have a chance to improvise as well?
A little of both, actually. Yeah, the one scene that I think we started to kind of riff on a bit was the scene at the bar. Nick and I just talking about his life and his writing, and he's trying to convince me to get away from my second husband. Yeah, we definitely were like messing around with stuff there, but I would say the rest of the scenes are pretty strict to the script.
So just want to talk about you briefly about the other parts of your career, of course, because we're cinema scholars, so it'd be remiss of myself not to touch on other areas of your career, if I may. Obviously, when I heard I was interviewing you, I had to be scraped off the ceiling, and I went around all my friends and relatives and colleagues and said, guess what? And the thing was, I noticed everyone had a different movie that they loved you for.
Really?
Back to the Future 2 and 3. Was it The Hollow Man? Was it Cocktail? Was it?
Wow.
Always. So I just wanted to ask you, first of all, you're known for all these movies throughout your career. Is there one or two that you feel don't get the love or maybe underrated?
Interesting. Wow, I get out all my resentment and bitterness now. I'm kidding.
Well, let's go.
No, one movie I really like that people aren't as aware of is Soap Dish. I feel like, not my part specifically. I think my part was fine. Actually, I think I could have done a better job. But the cast in that movie is crazy. And Kevin Kline, I think, is so brilliant. Oh my gosh, he's so brilliant in that movie. It's my favorite part he's ever played. So I feel like that is one that was just really amazing that people didn't really see. I would also say I really love Hamlet too. I have a small part in that.
I was going to say Hamlet too. A colleague of mine said it's the most underrated comedy there is.
I love that movie. That movie makes me so happy. I think, just like Steve Coogan, like a perfect movie, and yet just timing. It's always timing when things come out, and obviously the movie business has shifted quite a bit. So those small kind of movies are going to have a tough time. I mean, this movie might have a tough time. I would say getting out in theaters, having people come watch it in a theater might be challenging. Hopefully not, but you never know. What else? Oh my gosh, there's so many. A lot of movies I'm happy people haven't seen. It's on the radar, like, oh, thank God nobody remembers that I did that one.
Yeah.
Oh, I really love Gracie. Gracie's a movie that's very close to me. My husband directed it. My brothers helped produce it. It was loosely based on my life as a soccer player. Those are the three that come to mind.
The big three. Okay, that's my weekend sorted, and I'll definitely.
But I really love the idea of young girls seeing Gracie. I like the message it has for young girls. So sometimes I care about a movie getting out there just for that reason. That I feel like it might be inspirational for certain people.
Okay, then the other side of the spectrum, of course, we have Leaving Las Vegas. So I just wanted to run by a quote that you made. So the darker, more complex and emotional the part is, the easier it is for me. So is that the case in preparing for Sarah?
Yes. So much easier for me to play people that are opposite from who I appear to be. Because it was just, growing up, I never really was the way I maybe appeared to be. And however, or maybe it was just those first few parts that I played. It was nice to break the mold of just being one-dimensional in some ways. I mean, I guess that's terrible to judge yourself as being one-dimensional, because even Allie with an eye had some dimension. She was very upset when her radio was stolen. My favorite scene in the whole Karate Kid is when I start punching them when they try to break, when Billy Zabka runs over my radio.
That might be a kid.
That's really who I am. I grew up with three brothers, so I did a lot of punching.
Punch or be punched.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, Leaving Las Vegas will always be a very special movie to me for obvious reasons.
Oh yeah, of course. We could just list the awards you received and nominated for, but we'd be here all night for sure. And just another area I want to talk about. We also worked with Chris Columbus on his first film, all the way back with Adventures in Babysitting. What was that like?
Oh, great. That was a wonderful movie to work on. Like you said, because it was his first film. It was, I think it was the writer's first film. The producers, the Linda Obst and Deborah Hill, I think it was their first big film. Yeah, it was my first starring role. There was a real innocence about that movie, and an excitement that years go on and you just long for that. Wow, I can't believe I'm doing this movie. It's so exciting. I'm going to, each scene was so fun, terrifying, but fun. Singing the blues was just that one scene in itself was kind of just incredible to be able to have in my life. That was definitely a special moment.
So you've been in two, let's say, quite well-known franchises recently. The Karate Kid, of course, with Cobra Kai, and there's a little show called The Boys. So both of those franchises are sort of coming to a close. Are you interested in how their outcome is? No, you're not involved, so to speak.
No, I would definitely watch no matter what. I have to say, I've watched most of Cobra Kai, and I've watched some of, I haven't watched, I need to watch the third season. The fourth season is coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know. I feel very fortunate that I was part of the Boys universe. I really enjoyed playing that part. That was one of my favorite parts, for sure.
And that was a bit more dark as well, like you said.
Yeah. It was fun to be the villain.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, she was dark. Yeah.
It was fun. The twisted, weird relationship I had with Homelander was awesome.
And you must have heard recently, Anthony Stark came out and said you were his childhood crush. You must have read that recently.
I did read that, and he never told me that, so I thought that was funny. At first, I was like, you're probably doing all these press junkets, and you're getting bored saying the things you have to say over and over again. I never knew that, and he never told me that. So
he wouldn't say, would he? He said, guess what?
I know. I'm gonna have to give him shit about that.
Yes, look, he had nothing weird to do with you in that show anyway, so it's okay.
No, he's awesome. I'm so excited for him that that show has launched him in such a great way. It's awesome.
I do just have to ask about your death scene. You had no idea what it was going to look like. And obviously the audience was in shock and awe and horror. What do you feel about your death scene in The Boys?
Yeah, I liked my death scene. I thought it was very dramatic. I liked that my eyes were burnt out, that there was no possibility of me coming back alive. Although after it was a huge hit, I remember calling Eric and thinking like, well, isn't there some way that she could have like a twin? Maybe she wasn't actually killed. Maybe that was a doppelganger. Like at the last minute, a doppelganger was sitting there and it wasn't actually her, and that she had this all planned out. And
yeah, shapeshifters everywhere, no? Yeah.
I know. So yeah, I was definitely bummed that I wasn't continuing on, but he tries to remind me that it was my decision, even though I'm not sure it was, but I think it was. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, that's so awesome. And you're just very happy that these franchises have had your effect, because people say you went away for a while and things like that. But, I've done my research and you didn't really. You've had your steady career and you've been in CSI. What would you say your position is now? Because I say you're a prestige player now. You come in, bring in the quality. You have the Elizabeth Shue effect now, and people are really excited to see you in projects again. Does that make you feel good that people felt you out the way, but you've had a comeback? Or would you like to explain that? I didn't go away. I made movies, I made TV, I was a mom for a while.
It's part of the plan. I'm trying to make people really just want me more, so that I just do a little bit of work so that they're like, oh, we want more. No. I don't know. I find the career in quotation marks a complete mystery. How it evolves, how it goes up and down. And I would just say at the end of the day, if you can just continue working, even if there's large breaks in between, and even if some of the films or shows don't really pan out to be what you hope they would be, I do feel like that's kind of the goal, is just to keep working. So I'm definitely happy about that. And I also feel like in some ways it's given me a lot of time to be a mom, to have the other aspects of my life just as full. Lots of breaks, lots of time off, waiting for something that is exciting to do. So yeah, it's all balanced out in the end. But yeah, of course we all want to do better work and work with, do great movies with people you want to work with. So it's I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that I also still long for that. I do love that connection that I have with people that watch the films, and that they're generational, and the younger kids now can watch The Karate Kid or Adventures in Babysitting, that there's a sort of like they hold up over time. So yeah, it is a wonderful part about being an actor, is connecting to the people that watch your films. So I appreciate you watching them and caring. Thank you.
Mr. Arquette, how are you, good sir?
Hi, Glenn. I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Real pleasure to share a screen with you. We're going to talk about the good half. Of course, you play Rick, the stepdad of our main character, played by Nick Jonas. And what a great all-round guy he thinks he is. Every decision seems to be the wrong one. And I don't know, how did you find your way into playing Rick?
Oh, man. Rick was a really interesting character. When I first read this script, he's just sort of talked about a lot before he appears on screen. And when he does, he's a narcissist. So every decision he makes is really about him, despite the fact that it's his stepchildren that are, have lost their mother. And, so he really doesn't take their feelings into consideration that much. Rick's not a big feelings guy. So he just kind of, puts himself first, makes it very convenient for him. It's funny to approach a character like that because I once had a therapist who I was really obsessed with narcissists, and I had, known some in my life. And I asked him, so interested in narcissists. Do you have any narcissistic clients? And he said, no. And I said, you don't? Wow. He goes, yeah, you want to know why? And I said, why? He said, they don't need me. That said everything I needed to know about.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. They don't even self-reflect.
Yeah. So your character sort of brings the comedy, but it's sort of unexpected comedy, because you just cringe comedy with Rick. And you just squirm when you see him, and every time he comes on screen, you go, oh, what's he going to do now? There must have been some joy in that, going, I can just be the worst version of myself with this guy.
It is. It really is. It's different than me, so I had to, rein in some certain things. He's not going to laugh at certain things that I would laugh at, and he'd take a lot of stuff more personally, and, he looks down on people, and he can't be bothered. There's certain things that are very opposite me, but I found it really fun to play because you just have to be selfish. It's kind of interesting. You think of it like, I don't know, like a kid or something. It just, was just annoyed by everybody. Funny.
It's a great mix. Such a great ensemble as well, of course. You have to have some negativity in there to offset the grief and the pain, and have this guy just goes, oh yeah, so it's really bad. Yeah, we're all grieving. Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's a funny scene. I mean, it's not a funny scene. It's a sad scene. But, Nick Jonas' character, Erin, gets really upset with me because I'm cracking a joke at the memorial service. And we get into this big screaming match. But what the audience doesn't know, and what made my character so angry, was completely not in there. There's a scene right before that where the family, their part of the family, take a limousine to the memorial service after the funeral. And Robert, I was originally supposed to be in that limousine. And Robert called me up and he said, hey, I decided that Rick's not going to be in the limousine, so you can come in to work a couple hours late. Don't worry about it. No problem. But what he didn't know, and what the audience doesn't know, that I was fine with it because I was just had some more time off. But Rick, my character, was so pissed. He was so angry at the fact that he had rented this limousine. He picked it out. He paid for it. And he can't ride in it. How dare you? That he was really looking forward to the limousine ride. So that was his motivation into being so upset. Even I ad-libbed on my way out the door that they didn't use it. I was like, I hope you enjoyed the limousine ride. Because that's really what it was about for him. He was so pissed about that. But it was funny because it kind of gave me the, point of view where I could really dig into him, make him feel bad because they didn't let me ride in the limousine. But that's sort of where his brain went.
Yeah, so off screen, he's raging. That's really good. That's great. And off screen, you're like, he didn't get to limo. That's going to be the highlight of his day. Oh, man.
Yeah. He was looking, made sure there was alcohol in it.
Okay, so of course we're talking about the late mother, of course played by Elisabeth Shue. Wow.
Yeah.
So I've had the pleasure of speaking with Elisabeth just 2 days ago about the movie, and she is just fantastic. What was your reaction when you found out? Oh, we have limited screen time, of course. But what was your reaction when you found out you'd be playing her husband?
Oh, I loved it. I was a huge fan of hers and am a huge fan of hers. So, yeah, getting to work with her was great. We only had one actual scene together. So, but we had to talk about our backstory and what do you think connected these people with what together? We determined it was like must be some kind of passion element to their relationship. And you know, it's funny. Her previous husband was Matt Walsh, so there's such sort of polar opposites. It's kind of funny to see like who she had been with and who she then ended up with. But yeah, it was great to work with her. She was just fantastic.
Yeah, and such a career as well. It's amazing. So we talked about briefly director Robert Schwartzman. So he's made the switch recently from actor to director as well. Do you think this influenced his directing style at all?
Absolutely. I think he really understands actors and their approach and just artists in general. I mean, he's such a creative person with the music he does and directing and acting and just his understanding of comedy and literature. So yeah, it was fantastic script that Brett wrote. It was based on a true experience that he had. You know, Cleveland gets a really bad rap in this film, and I apologize to anyone from Cleveland because it was a sort of based on this experience the writer had. And I think a lot of it has to do with having to see Rick, to be honest, my character. So I encourage everyone to go to Cleveland. It's a beautiful city. I love it very much. But yeah, Robert was really incredible. He was open to sort of improvising and would let us sort of find the scene and discover little different beats, and he would let us sit in the awkwardness, which was really fun. We'd just like sit there for a while before you set action.
That's great. And like yourself, he sort of comes from this acting dynasty, if you like. So if our readers don't know, Robert Schwartzman, brother of Jason, was answering regular. And of course, his mother on screen has been in Balboa, Anna Corleone, of course, Talia Shire, which is incredible, who of course is a Coppola as well. Did you guys trade any family stories?
Yeah, I mean, at one point, so this is how awkward it gets, but at one point we were somewhat related because my sister Patricia was married to Nick Cage at one point, so we had known each other and seen each other, so there was that sort of connection. And it's slight, but it did mean something. I mean, it kind of felt like, you know, seeing him again. You know, we had seen each other at family functions in the past, so there was like this awkward element of family that is within this film as well.
Yeah, that's fun. Okay, so like Robert, you sort of stepped out of acting and done a lot of executive producer roles. Do you get to pick and choose your roles? Because just going through your IMDb, it's very niche, shall we say, some of the projects you've executive produced. Yeah. So what sort of attracts you to projects, and why do you choose what you do?
Well, it's this sort of weird like game in Hollywood where you develop things for a long time, and some things go, and some things you keep trying to push, and some things never make it, and some things you pour tons of time into, and they you know, never get greenlit. So it's a portion of it is just what you actually get to finally make. So sometimes it can seem like they're kind of out of left field or this or that, but you're developing something for television. Buy the rights to a book and get a script written, and then it finally becomes a movie, or you find an independent script, or you do a game show or something like that. There's all of these, you know, based on a game. So you, it's just one thing you learned, or at least I learned as an actor, is that there's a lot of downtime, and for a person like me, it can kind of drive you a little crazy. So I tend to find projects that, you know, I can do in my free time that make it so I don't feel like I'm just sitting around all the time. So I'm working on different things and spending time with different things, or writing a comic or something like that.
Yeah. So people think, obviously, you're not on Scream anymore. You think, oh, you've got nothing to do, but check it out because you're a busy, busy man. And of course, we are cinema scholars. We have to talk about that little franchise called Scream, if you don't mind. I just wanted to ask your opinion. What do you think is Scream's legacy on horror?
Oh, man. I think Scream was really amazing, the way Kevin Williamson kind of dissected the whole genre and made it very self-referential, and Wes Craven coming in and just sort of taking all the knowledge that he had of this genre and also infusing it with this humor and this sort of tongue-in-cheek element, and it did help sort of relaunch the love of horror films. It sort of gave horror fans an understanding that this was a community, and it gave rules about it all, and sort of this understanding about the genre, and then it allowed people to sort of, the community to come together and sort of like find the things that they like in these different movies and talk about them and meet the performers and meet the director. So I'm really excited about Scream 6 being Kevin Williamson's first time to direct one of the films that he was so incredible writing and starting. And having Neve Campbell come back is exciting.
And of course, talking about the characters, can I just share with you my favorite Dewey moment in the whole franchise? It's in Scream 1. Sydney has gone to stay with Tatum at your house, and Ghostface is called, then hung up, and Dewey just goes like this. Hello?
Yeah.
I just thought that was a perfect character moment because it just summed Dewey up. He's out in his pajamas and his pants, and the girls have had a scare. He puts on his big boy voice. It goes, hello.
That was a Wes Craven moment. He had said, we'd done it a couple of times, and they said, hey, when you do it again, like, answer it as if, you could perhaps be the killer. I was like, oh, wow. Oh, Wes, thank you. Yeah, that's a little insight. I don't know if I've ever shared that. But yeah, it was a really beautiful moment. And to a certain extent, a lot of the time they didn't give us the final pages. I think they did in the first script. So we never even knew. So there were some times where some of your choices that you're making were as if you could have been the killer as well. Some of the stuff that, the way you approach certain lines or certain interactions with different characters, it kind of gives it this other layer that you can perform, draw from.
So that happened even in the first movie, because we know that happened in subsequent movies that you got pages at a time as opposed to, but even the first one, that was the case.
Little stuff. I mean, they would hide maybe like certain reveals and stuff, certain pages that said certain stuff about certain characters. Like maybe that there were two, I think some of the things they kept, under wraps, for sure.
Yeah. That's good for you too as a performer, because it keeps it interesting for you as well. I just want to share one more quote with you. Is that okay, David? So I can relate more to people at a horror convention than I can to most Hollywood executives. I'm talking about community as well. The horror community must have been very kind to you, because I never got the Dewey hate. I love Dewey since the first movie. So the convention must be very kind to you.
You go to a horror convention and meet all these amazing fans, and they share these stories about, we got engaged right after the first Scream. We had a Scream-themed wedding. Like, all of these interesting things. Like, we met, and now we have 3 children. Like, I watched this film with my parent, my dad who passed, like that kind of stuff. Just is like, it just really touches you, and you get to like really interact and meet the fans, and then sometimes you meet them over the years and all this stuff. So it's like becomes this element of like growing up together or experience part of your life together. And then, it was the first horror movie I saw, and now my kids watch it and they fell in love with the genre. So it's like this ongoing like fandom, which we're like not only performers in it, but we're also, fans ourselves of these films and that. So it's this really cool community. I think there's something about like horror fans where they watch this kind of stuff and it kind of gets it out of their system because they're like the sweetest people you'd ever meet.
Yeah, a perfect way to close. Mr. Arquette, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and good luck with the film.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Now, wasn't that a roller coaster ride? We enjoyed it very much. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Now, do not forget to engage, follow, like, comment, subscribe to all our social medias. Your support matters. Now, see you in the next one. Bye!
Are you not entertained?